Know what that's all about. But I was in the store the other day and I saw a Hello Kitty purse and Kitty had a mustache, so it just inspired me. I'm pleased now, very pleased, to be able to introduce our second keynote speaker of the conference, Johanna Rothman. I did not discover Johanna, as I think maybe she discovered me, but we met some time ago when the Earth's crust was cooling and have been friends ever since. She's known as the pragmatic manager. She helps organizational leaders see problems and risks in their product development and helps them recognize potential gotchas, seize opportunities, and remove impediments. Johanna was the conference chair for another Agile conference, which we don't mention by name.
Sorry.
Sorry. I need a shameless plug here, for SQE's Agile Development Conference, which is next month in Orlando. And Johanna is currently the technical editor of the AgileJournal.com, does a great job for that. She's written a number of books: Manage Your Job Search, Hiring Geeks That Fit, Manage Your Project Portfolio. She won the 2008 Jolt Productivity Award on her book, Manage It, Your Guide to Modern Pragmatic Project Management. She's written one called Behind Closed Doors, Secrets of Great Management. Another wonderful book, Hiring the Best Knowledge Workers, Techies, and Nerds, The Secrets and Science of Hiring Technical People. She's just a fantastic author, and all of her things are wonderful. Again, she's working on a book right now about Agile program management. I just asked her when she has time to do all of this stuff, but she does write marvelous things. She also writes columns for StickyMinds.com and Ganthead.com. She has 2 blogs on her website, jrothman.com, as well as a blog on CreateAdaptableLife.com. Again, my pleasure to welcome Johanna Rothman, who's going to talk about becoming a kick-ass test manager. Johanna.
Thank you very much, Lee. There's a little bit of a problem. You'll notice that my name is spelled with only one N. So if you tweet the highly intelligent things that I say, please only tweet with one N. And if you tweet the incredibly stupid things I say, you can tweet with 2 N's. That's okay. You'll notice that my slides are different than the slides you see in the proceedings that you already got. Think of those as the beta version. That's okay. And these will be, you notice that Rochelle sends out the slides in advance, and then she sends out the slides again. That's for people like me who practice and then improve and have a release 1.0, or maybe this is release 1.1. I don't know. But I would think that in the spirit of testing, you would allow me to have a previous set that I sent in on time, and then a set that I did in time for the conference, as I figured out, oh, that was boring. So this is, with any luck, the non-boring stuff. If you've seen my talks before, you'll notice that I actually don't use the word ass, even when I talk about estimation. Right? If you've seen me talk about swags, you know that I talk about scientific wild tush guesses. So you're probably surprised, why is Johanna talking about becoming a kick-ass test manager? That's not like her. Because when I have a microphone on, I try and talk like a lady. If you've seen me speak one-on-one, you'll notice that I do swear. It's something I'm trying not to do, but I do. And so why did I actually talk about becoming a kick-ass test manager? And for those of you who are streaming virtually, yes, I did put the emphasis on that word. I know, surprise, surprise. But my mom, hi Mom, is not watching this. So it's okay. And my kids never watch my stuff or read my stuff. So It's just fine. So they will never know this. Of course, with my luck, this is the one thing that they would actually watch. But I'm pretty sure that they won't. So that's because when you start thinking about the meaning of kick-ass, it's awesome. That's what kick-ass really means. And so what I want you to think about as I talk to you this morning, and then as you proceed through the conference, I want you to think about kick-ass meaning awesome. I want you to translate that notion of kick-ass to think about what does it mean to be an awesome champion for your team. And whether or not you're a test manager, or you might think about being a test manager, or you know a test manager, or you have worked with a test manager, or you have seen a test manager in the distance, walking down the halls of your organization, or you think that there might not even be room for a test manager in your life. Think about the awesomeness and the championness of a manager in your organization, because that's what I really want to talk to you about today. The awesome championness of this potential human being in your organization. So I set the bar pretty high, and I hope I can deliver. So the first thing I want to say is we have no victims in this potential person. There are no victims allowed. Testers are not victims. You just heard a great keynote by Jonathan. Did you ever see a person have so much fun in your entire life? He had fun talking about the testing. He actually had fun even when he was talking about TSA. He hid in the corner. You can only imagine what happened with TSA. I am a Luddite. Yes, I actually have a smartphone, but I print my boarding passes. Okay, so I don't test mobile apps, even for a living. But even so, I have been in this position where they want to see, yes, I've even gotten on the plane and they want to see my boarding pass again. But I don't believe that the boarding pass applications have really crossed the chasm yet. So I still print my boarding pass. My husband, on the other hand, says, well, you're in technology. Why don't you use your smartphone? Well, this is why. But Jonathan didn't do it. Yeah. Jonathan didn't do it from a victim perspective. He did it from a curiosity perspective. And that's the key, right? None of us are victims in this great technology, in this great industry of ours, right? We are awesome. We are the people who can make these applications work. We can make these products work. We can make these systems work. We are the people who go hand in hand with the developers. And as long as you think about our management being awesome champions and the testers being partners with developers, then there are no victims in this industry. Okay, let's get to the meat of this. So there are three aspects of test management that I want to talk to you about today. There are people aspects, because you got to start with the people. There's the leadership, and then there's the business. And it's hard sometimes to know where the three aspects start and end. But as usual, it's not a 2x2 matrix, it's sort of a 3x3, but let's just start with the people. If you are a manager, you must develop high-value people. And it does not matter to me where in the world they are, right? There are high-value people everywhere in the world. And the real problem is that if you start hiring low commodity testers, right? If you have commodity testers where you start talking about $2 an hour, and yes, I'm exaggerating, but not by much, right? I bet you also get the emails that say, I can give you developers for $10 an hour or testers for $12 an hour or something. As soon as you start competing on price, you are not talking about value. And this is the problem. Price and value are two totally different things. Cost and value have nothing to do with each other. And I see project managers and senior managers make this mistake time and time and time again. I don't actually care where the testers and developers are for the project that you are working on. And if you are so unfortunate to have your testers 12 hours away from your developers, oh my goodness. But you need to manage that project very differently than you would if your testers are down the hall. Right? There are ways to do this. You can actually manage that project in an agile way if you are so inclined. It is so amazingly difficult. Forget iterations. You should just move to Kanban. You can tweet that, by the way. And forget Scrum. Scrum is the wrong agile approach. Yes, you can tweet that too. Because it doesn't work. Why use the wrong organization for your project when it doesn't work? But there are lots of things you can do. But you cannot use commodity testers where you're competing on price. You must use high-value testers. You need gray box testers. You need white box testers. You need testers who can understand the solution space, right? Not just what is the problem. They need to understand the architecture of the product. This is really important. Can almost every single person who has test in their name understand the solution space of the product? Almost everybody can if you explain to them and educate them. This means you almost have to always hire people who are smarter than you are. This means your ego cannot get in the way. I thought that this was a really good idea back when I was a test manager. I thought that when I was hiring people, I should almost always hire people who were smarter than I was so that they could do the testing and I could actually do the management. There were several of my management peers who said, oh, why would you do this? And I said, because I'm not going to do the testing? And they are? And I'm not going to keep up with the testing tools? And they are? And they said, this is the deer in the headlights look. Right? I hope all of you can see me. Those people back there, can you see? Did you see that? Okay. I've given up on you guys. You're too far away. I could drop my mouth open, but I don't think you can see it. So it's really important. It's your job, if you're a manager, to say, how am I going to make sure that the people who I'm hiring and the people who are in my group have high worth, are not commodity people? I happened to write an article about this that's on Sticky Minds this week, about this management myth of no training needed. You should check it out. Okay, Lee, I just promoted Sticky Minds, wherever Lee is. He always wanders to the back of the room so I can't see him when I'm speaking. So one of the things you have to do if you're looking to make sure that people high commodity, are not low commodity people. I knew I would screw this up. Who have high worth. Let me just say that. Have high worth to you. Is to make sure that you give them feedback. And it's not just feedback from you. Right? Manager to employee feedback is almost all, well, not the least valuable. But employee to employee feedback is the most valuable feedback. And that means it's not evaluation or praise. It's the kind of thing where, and Bob, I'm going to use you because Bob Galen is sitting in the front row. And Bob and I have known each other for almost as long as Lee and I have known each other. And I've given stuff to Bob to review because I've said, Bob, is this okay? And Bob has said, JR, no. Actually, you've gotten this part wrong. And this is how you could make it right. This is not evaluation or praise. It's just, here's how you could make it right. And this is really helpful feedback. Now, if we were working on a team, and I suspect that when Bob works on his Agile teams, he does a lot of this kind of peer-to-peer feedback. Because if you're working on a team and someone is doing something kind of crazy, maybe not even crazy, maybe it's great. If you see someone doing something really well, you want to say, oh, hey, look, you did something really great. If you want someone to do something, to continue to do something really great, you want to say, wow, this is great. Let's keep doing something really great because the team really likes it. So this is the kind of feedback you want to keep giving people. And it's the same thing with coaching, right? If you never coach anybody, then how will they know what to do? This is not always in the manager purview. This is the same kind of thing. If you're part of a team, you slide in and out of coaching if the other person wants coaching. And a lot of people say, well, I'm a coach, especially I'm an Agile coach. But a lot of people are Agile coaches where they keep teaching the team things. And this is not coaching. That's teaching without a contract to teach. I'm talking about coaching where you're offering options with support. A coaching has a beginning and an end. And not everybody wants coaching from you if you're a manager. Sometimes they want coaching from their peers. And your job as a manager is to say, I can see a need for coaching. I wonder who the right person to be the coach is. So your job as an awesome champion is to say, how do I nudge this person into accepting coaching so I create a high-value tester? Or if your job is as a senior manager, how do I help this manager to accept coaching? Right? Because you're an awesome champion. So this is one of the things you want to think about. Now, one of the things I have seen in a number of places in my travels is how do we help testers get the career development that they need. Some testers want to stay testers. They love to test. I was not one of those people. I'm a generalist. I was a developer. I was a tester. I was a project manager. I was a program manager. If you look at my resume, if we are already connected on LinkedIn, as I am with many of you, you look at my background and you say, boy, that woman could not decide for the life of her what she wanted to do. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And there are some people like me. There are others of you who it says tester and it has, 15 years of test experience. That's wonderful. You guys are not like me. the world needs some of each of us. And that's wonderful, right? Everyone is a unique individual, and everyone needs different career development. But one of the things I really like is to make sure that I'm doing appropriate career development with each and every person on my team. That's what an awesome champion does. And if you are not doing career development and you have the title manager in your, well, manager somewhere in your title, then you are not an awesome champion. So think about, how do I do career development with the people on my team? What do I need to do for career development? Do I have a ladder somewhere? Do I need to work with HR to put a ladder together? Or have we gone agile and thrown out all the ladders and we have nothing to do to put anything back for, that takes their place? Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about leading the hiring effort, because you know how strongly I feel about that, right? Do it. You have to lead it, but you don't actually have to do everything about it. So what's really important with all this people stuff is you have to have one-on-ones. I really like weekly one-on-ones. But if you're agile, bi-weekly one-on-ones might be exactly the right thing. One-on-ones are not just for status, although if you're not agile, they might be for status. But if you're only doing one-on-ones monthly or quarterly or, God forbid, yearly, that is not often enough. And don't tell me you know what everyone is doing. You do not know what everyone is doing. You don't. And you don't know what's going on in their lives that could affect what their work is. I did an assessment for a small organization. It had about 25 technical people in the organization. And the guy leading the organization said to me over and over and over again, I know what everyone is doing. I look at their check-ins. So he knew what everyone was doing. I said, but the testers are all manual testers. They don't have any check-ins. How do you know what they're doing? He said, well, the test manager knows what they're doing. And so to me, that was a real disconnect. So I talked to the test manager, and I said, the testers are 12 hours away, right? So the test manager is remote from all the developers, and the testers are 12 hours away. And so I said, how do you know what the testers are doing? And he said, I have no freaking clue. So I reported this. Well, I didn't say he had no freaking clue. I said, I don't think that the test manager actually knows what the testers are doing. He said, oh, I'm sure he knows. So now I have this problem, right? I'm this outside consultant doing an assessment. I know the test manager has no clue. I know the senior manager has no clue. So I sent an email to some of the testers and said, hey, how's it going? And one of them said, do you have the ear of the senior manager? I replied, yes. They said, this release is in the toilet. Okay, so they trusted me more than they trusted anyone else. Right? This is the kind of conversation you want to have on a weekly basis. You want to know this early enough to do something about it. This is the kind of stuff you're going to hear one-on-one. You're not going to hear it in a serial status meeting. You're not going to hear the fact that, you know, people's personal lives are going to affect their work lives. You're not going to hear that stuff except in a one-on-one. You've got to have the one-on-ones. Are they hard to do? Of course they're hard to do. This is why they pay you. This is called work. Okay, so Jonathan has a really good time with his work. But do you think that some of his work is hard? Of course it's hard. But it's hard work. And sometimes it's hard to know if you're an awesome champion, if you actually got the stuff done that you needed to get done at the end of the day. But it's really, when you actually do the people stuff and you say, I think I did a good job. I had a lot of one-on-ones today, and I think I pulled some of the puzzle pieces together, but I'll know in a few weeks if I really did. But I know that I know I got so-and-so to coach Susie, and I know I gave some good feedback, and I'm pretty sure that we are making progress here. Then you know you did a good job. So it's worth it. Let's talk about the business. And let's think about what's important to the business. It doesn't matter if you're an IT organization or a for-profit organization or a non-for-profit organization. Somebody has to make some money or your organization goes out of business. Right? Some kind of revenue has to come in, or you have to save some money. And that's why I say testing is all about information. It's not just about defects. So let me do this little piece of information here. You, as testers and test managers, need to take a holistic view of the project or the program. You have some constraints. There's the work environment, there's all the people on the project and their capabilities, and there's the cost to release. And everyone will tell you that the stuff on the outside is fixed at the beginning of the project or the program. It's totally fixed. You can't change it. Of course, they're wrong, because at the end of the project, if you sometimes, if you say, we need more money, well, sometimes you can do that. And what happens sometimes at the end of the project? Well, if you need more people, supposedly you can get more people. Now, there's a desired feature set, there's a desired time to release, and there's a desired number of defects. And if you think about this as a pyramid, if you pull on this little knobby in the middle, you can change the number of features you can put in, you can change the time to release, and you can change the defects. This is why you cannot put 10 pounds of project in a 5-pound bag. This is why. Okay? And if you are perpetually in the early part of the market, this is why your customers, sorry, those of you in the back, this is why your customers do not care about low defects first. So it's not that your customers don't care about quality in quotes, right? Air quotes. Quality. They don't care about low defects first. They care about low defects. It's just not first. It isn't until you cross the chasm that they care about low defects first. So a lot of times when people care about defects, it depends on where you are in your market. Everyone has a market. This is why you need to build release criteria that reflect who your customers are and when. So if you're not thinking about your business, you're really in trouble. I hope that this makes sense. So the business is going to drive what your release criteria is for a given project. And if you're not thinking about your release criteria, and you're not thinking about the business, if you're only focused on defects, and especially getting them low, you're not thinking about the business for your test group. Now, sometimes it almost doesn't matter. If you're in the airplane business or a regulated industry, you probably always have to think about low defects. Right? That's the kind of industry that you're in. But for a lot of other applications, you really want to think about this. You have to think about what kind of quality is appropriate for the industry that we are in. That's why you have to think about the business if you want to be an awesome champion for your test group. So let's now talk about leadership. I have a little bug up my word that I don't normally say when I'm wearing a microphone. A lot of test groups that I see have solo experts. We have a performance expert over here. We have a reliability expert over here. We have this kind of an expert over here. And then when a given project needs that particular expert, that expert is, of course, unavailable. Well, this is a problem, isn't it? That means that the expert has to multitask. Well, if you've read any of my writing, you know how I feel about multitasking. I think it's crazy. So, multitasking is the best way to not get anything done at all. Right? That lady in the white sweater, she's agreeing with me. Rock on, sister. So, if you try and multitask testers on projects, you get nothing done. Not a thing. Right? So, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to do this. You assign a tester to be half-time on one project and 35% on another project and 15% on a third project. And what happens? Nothing! Nothing gets done! Right? Or you get a bunch of manual test cases done that don't actually tell you anything about the projects. Right? You don't get any valuable information. You don't get sufficient regression testing. You don't get sufficient exploratory testing. You don't get any automation. You have built nothing for the future. And this tester does not learn enough to become any kind of an expert at all. There is no career development. There is no nothing. You have just successfully built yourself a tester with not even a year, another year of experience at the end of a year. Right? This is bad. This is very, very bad. So you don't want to do that. But you don't know what else to do instead, right? You're saying, okay, JR, tell me the magic soup or the magic sauce. So the key is you have to know your tester and organizational capacity. What can people do? So there are enough people here, if you're willing, to answer this question. How many of you actually know your organizational capacity now? How many of you actually know how many projects can you get through your testing department? Do you know? I'm not asking for a number. Do you know how many projects you can get through in, say, a month? A few hands are going up. Okay, a few of you. So the key is you have to know what your systemic obstacles are, and you have to know when a team is stuck. Those are the keys. to knowing your organizational capacity. Because otherwise, you can't know your capacity and deal with it. One of the things you have to do is build your communities of practice. You have to help people learn across the testing group and across the organization. Because it's not just about testers, right? One of the things, and I wish I could take credit for this, I was not smart enough to do this, so I'll tell you what we did. One of the things I started to learn long ago was that if we had lunch and learns across the organization, my group learned a lot about how other people did their job across the organization. Way back when I was working at Symbolics, I was testing networks. This is before networks were built in and you could just use them. So before before FTP and TCP were built in and they were normal parts of operating systems, we had to test them. And I actually didn't know how the packets were created and configured. So neither did anyone else in my testing group. I know you're smiling. This is a very long time ago. Well, I have gray hair. What the heck? So I asked the network guys to actually explain how was a packet configured and how did we know how the packets got from place to place and how did they get there and how did they get how did they get to the other place? So we had this really fascinating lunch and learn for networking. I can't explain how they did it. To this day, it still seems like magic. I'm really glad it just happens now. But this is, when I had to test, I actually found a lot of really interesting stuff out at that particular lunch and learn, and I devised a lot of really nasty tests. The FTP guy said, at the end of that, he had kind of wished I hadn't gone to that lunch and learn. But I actually helped him build a much more robust FTP server and client because my tests helped him learn what would fail. So it was a very helpful lunch and learn. So when you have these communities of practice, it really helps everybody learn. Now, when you're helping people figure out how not to multitask, one of the best things you can do is build a project portfolio. And you'll notice that there's this big black line above the unstaffed work line. This notion of trying to get people to say that they're partially on one project and partially on another, don't do that. Just, this is how you say no in a pictorial fashion. Right? This is the way you do it. You say, we are going to not staff these projects. I understand that you want us to start Project 3 in the shortest month of the year, when we already have 2 other projects staffed, but we're not going to do it. And this is how you're going to show people that you're going to not staff these projects. And when you show people how many other projects are competing for your time, and then when you say, here are ways I'm going to say no, right? This is how you have the conversation. Pictures really help people understand what else is competing for your time. There are lots of ways to say no. I have a number of them on my blog. You don't actually have to buy the Project Portfolio book, although I would like it if you did, just in case you weren't sure. When you only staff the strategically important work, That's when you're leading. That's when you're an awesome champion. Because when you try and staff everything, you have lots of chaos. That's when people don't make that's when you're allowing your senior management not to make the really important decisions. Because if they are not making the really important decisions, then why are the testers actually making the really important decisions about which projects to do and which projects not to do? Right? The testers are not being paid the senior management bucks. That's really the key. Now, I was going to ask you, what are some of your organizational obstacles that are preventing you from being an awesome champion? Shout them out, because I want to hear it. I heard something in marketing. Meetings. Okay, how many of you spend so much time in meetings you actually can't get a handle on what your test teams are doing? Okay, so how many of your meetings have agendas? Okay, so here's the deal. If the meeting does not have an agenda, I say you don't have to go. Now, to be fair, tell the person who's having the meeting that if they don't send you the meeting, the agenda 24 hours in advance, you're not going to go. Right? Give them 24 hours of notice. Don't just not show up. That's rude. And that would not be awesome champion behavior. So, every meeting should have an agenda. Every meeting should have minutes. Action items should come out of the meeting. And if you just have a standing meeting without an agenda, action items in the minutes, then you don't have to go. And you don't have to send anyone else either. Right? Because meetings are killers, total time killers. And I don't think you have to go. Right? This is really key. Because if there are project meetings, I mean, what are you going to do? If there's no action items, you should have an action item from the meeting. If no one is keeping an action item, what's the point of the meeting? If it's information dissemination, unless it's secret financial information, you're all going to give me $1 million. I like that. No, you're not. So, I mean, what's the point? Right? So, you don't have to go. There is no reason to go. So, is there another reason for a meeting? The meeting should only be there if you have some decision to make, right? There's some information that you have to act upon to make a decision and then continue. There's a problem that has to be solved. So if there's no problem to solve, you don't need the meeting. Okay, what's another obstacle? Yes, what?
Supply versus demand.
Supply versus demand of what?
What the business is demanding from us versus what we can supply.
So is that supply of projects versus demand?
Supply of people and resources.
Supply of people and other resources. So that goes back to the project portfolio. Right? So this is why you need to actually say, here's a picture of our project portfolio, here's what we can staff, here's what we cannot staff, and here's when these projects will be done. This is why you need to fully staff projects to finish them. Right? And this is why you need to fully assign testers to finish the projects, get them done. This is why you need to know which project is number one. This is why you also need to know how little you can do for projects and when the projects will be done with reasonable release criteria. I'll take one more obstacle. I saw a lady in...
Stuck in a cycle of hurry up and wait.
hurry up and wait. Was
Not enough time to plan, and then when you have time to plan, the plan changes last minute.
so and the cycle of hurry up and wait. Not enough time to plan, and when you do have time to plan, the plan changes at the last minute. Is this for a project? Everything. So are you folks agile or not?
Some are, some not.
Some are, some not. So this is where a combination of iterations and Kanban would probably really help. You've heard this before?
One of our development teams uses Kanban.
Okay, so if you have, how many people here have hurry up and wait syndrome? Is this a common thing? I see a number of hands. So hurry up and wait means it's really hard for people to decide what the real priority is, and then when they do decide, they still have trouble deciding. So if this sounds familiar to anybody, this means they are having trouble understanding what you are releasing as a product development organization. That means you need to start releasing more often. Anyone else have that trouble, right? No one seems to think that you're releasing often enough. That seems to be a common issue. So one of the things I really like there is if you either go to 1 week iterations or to Kanban with really small stories. I mean really small stories. So I really like Kanban with either 1 or 2 day stories or 1 week iterations. So you just keep pumping out really small chunks of work, and you just get into a regular release cycle for anything. That means you need automated tests along with really good testers who are great at exploratory testing, so that everything is automated and that the exploratory testers can can explore the entire application while the automated tests take over regression. This is challenging, right? Now you need to be awesome champions as managers and awesome testers as testers. This is not something you get to overnight. But get to the point where you can at least release applications at least weekly, if not daily. This is hard. Hard. So, if anyone else wants to talk to me about their obstacles, I have presenter one-on-one whenever it says on the blue sheet. I don't remember. That's why it's written down. I can't remember this stuff. So let me tell you what I told you, because I can't remember this stuff. That's why it's written down. You want to grow the people in your organization. I believe in growing people organically. I like to think about some testers as developers whose code doesn't ship. Not everyone who's a tester is a developer whose code doesn't ship, right? Some testers add value in other ways. But you have to think about, how are the testers who are not like developers adding value? You have to really think about that, right? Not everyone who used to be a tester can still be a tester. There was a huge hiring spree of manual black box testers. And these days, it's not clear that those folks still have a future in testing if they can't figure out how to do some automation. This is a problem. This is really a problem, and awesome champions need to understand, what do I do with my people? You are responsible for them. You need to grow them in some way, shape, or form. And you need to think about what information your testers are providing. You need to think about what's important to the business and think about what your dashboards look like. You need to facilitate release criteria that fit your project. This is critical to the project. And you need to provide information about the project, not just defect information. And you need to lead so that you don't have multitasking, so that you can finish your projects. And you need to spread the expertise love, as I like to call it, the solution space domain expertise. And I think that this communities of practice thing, where you learn about all kinds of things about the product, is critical. So that's the three pieces: the people, the leadership, and the business. And that's how you become awesome champions. And my wish for you, my vision for you, is that as you go through this conference, that you think about how you become awesome champions, and that you take all of these things, and that you think about, how do I take all the stuff that Jonathan said, and then I think about the obstacles that I have, and I become an awesome champion. And I thank you.
That wraps up this event. Thank you for joining us.